Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Joe Bergamini here with the Sabian Education Network, back here on Friday once again. That was super cool. Lot to talk about there. I want to welcome as my guest today an old acquaintance and now a new good friend and a longtime friend and player of Sabian, Mr. Randy Black. Welcome, Randy.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me. So nice to be here. I'm honored.
I'm so excited to have you. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for watching. Again, a lot to talk to Randy about today. And welcome, old and new SEN friends. You guys know the drill. Type in your comments. I'll try to get to as many questions as we can. And well, let me, I always like to give a little overview of my guest each time. So for those of you who are maybe just meeting Randy or not familiar with his work, he's well known for some pretty technical and aggressive metal playing with the bands Annihilator and Primal Fear and many more, but he's also a very versatile player who has toured and recorded with other bands, including a band I remember from my early metal days called Wasp, and he's also worked as a sideman in a challenging setting called Rock Meets Classic, where he's gone out and played with the symphony orchestra, and in that setting has worked with some legends like Alice Cooper and Paul Rodgers and Midge Ure and Uriah Heep and Bonnie Tyler, which is super duper impressive. Started out as a big Rush fan like I did, and was in one of the best known tribute bands touring all across Canada for many years called Click, which we're going to talk about. Longtime Sabian artist, also an educator. We met when Randy published his DVD with Hudson Music, which we still distribute and you can get digitally, called The Black Book. And he's also an educator, currently teaching at BIM and drum trainer Berlin and based in Germany. So again, welcome, Randy.
Hey, thank you. Nice.
Cool. So let's start at the beginning. I really, in talking to you, I got really intrigued by your early days, and of course, you have a unique approach to playing with your sort of ambidextrous, open-handed thing. So how did it all start for you? And since this is a Sabian Education Network thing, presentation, maybe you could mention, did you have any drum teachers in the beginning? Were they a part of it, and what got you going?
Do you mean specifically with the?
Oh no, I mean, like, how did you become a drummer? Who inspired you?
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just watching Ed Sullivan, seeing the Beatles on TV, and it was just like fascination with the drum kit. Mm-hmm. Every album I saw with the drum kit on it, I was just always staring at the drum kit and had a fascination for it. And at 11 years old, for my birthday, I got my first drum kit. It was kick, snare, tom, Raven drum kit. And that's when I started. And the next birthday I got a Baxter percussion floor tom. Do you know any of those names? Are they ringing bells?
No, but okay. I had my own no-name brand that I beat the living you-know-what out of for a couple of years.
Yeah. So I started with lessons back then. And in junior high school, I wanted, of course, to play the drums, but they didn't offer drums. It was all strings. So I picked what I thought was the closest thing to drums. I played the stand-up bass for 3 years in junior high school. Oh. And at the same time, getting better on the drums and practicing. And then in high schools, when it was first offered to play the drum set in high school. So, basically, I had private lessons just not that long, and then the rest was kind of self-taught and just listening to tons of records and different bands and stuff like that. speaking of bands, I just, off the top, my main band now is Destruction, for
Oh.
those who might not know. Yeah. Since August 2018 was my first official date at Wacken, the biggest metal festival. Anyway, yeah, so
that's great.
That's how it all started.
Is there if people want to check out Destruction, is there a new recording or anything that you can direct?
Actually, yeah. We just released, actually, where is it? Born to Thrash, just weeks ago. It's a live CD that we recorded last summer at one of the festival parties I think. And the year before that, we released the first CD that I was involved in with Destruction, called Born to Perish. And it's available through Nuclear Blast Records.
Okay. You mentioned you played the bass for a while. Like, are you, in your bands, are you still like a melodic player? Like, do you participate in the writing on piano or?
Absolutely not. No. But if I could say something to that, I wish I had, because I went to college, a place called Grant McEwen. That was, later education. I went for like half a year because, long story short, in the break, I got into a cover band that toured across Canada for 7.5 months, longest tour I ever did. So I didn't make it back to the second semester. So I just continued as a live drummer. But where was I at first? Grant McEwen.
We were talking about whether you kept up with the other instruments.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I wish I had kept up with it, but no. But if this might inspire drummers that don't know another instrument or don't write music for this Destruction album. It's funny, we were in Tijuana, Mexico, and backstage, Gene Hoglan.
Yeah.
Of course. So his wife's band was opening, and we were just hanging out backstage, and our guitar player was like, we're starting to write our new record, and, there's that drum program that you did some stuff for, Gene. I think Superior Drummer or something. And he said, I write my riffs to, your drumming. And that got me thinking. I went, hold on a second. I know how to record my own drums now. And so I kept that in the back of my mind. I went home and I just recorded drum ideas. I actually wrote it down on a piece of paper. Intro idea, just wrote it down, not drum notes. And then I recorded each section, what I thought would be a cool breakdown, what I thought would be a cool chorus groove, a cool rhythm to open with, etc. And I recorded it all and sent 2 different songs to them, and they freaked out. They were like, this is great. And they wrote 2 songs that are on the album, and the title track is the one that I sent them. Born to Perish. And so just record yourself, record some ideas, and present them to your band members. Because I don't know how to play.
So like on that tune, do you have like writing credit from that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as drummers, we're in a situation where, the copyright is the melody and the lyrics, but in band, especially in a band, when you're writing together, the drummer's providing such an important part that, a lot of bands, they, give credit where it's due to the drummer. Like you can't have 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover without that beat,
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Going back to the beginning, you mentioned you had some lessons. Now, were your teachers in the beginning, like, was it kind of like, did they know what you were doing? Did they know you were like that into it? Or was it, were you like, I had a situation where, my teachers taught me paradiddles and traditional grip, and they rarely ever asked me anything. And they didn't know I was like at home bugging out to Rush and Black Sabbath and Van Halen. Is that what went on with you too, or not?
Pretty much, yeah. The first lessons was he was just teaching me how to read basic notes and a couple cool fills that he thought were cool that I did too. But no, we never ever really learned songs or anything, it was just like basic notes and like rudiments, and which I always loved, and I always loved to play and search out new ones, hybrids, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I try to instill that in my students too, because you can use them all over the place, even in metal.
So when you went through the process of like, before you joined Click and toured all over Canada, which we're going to get to, the cover bands and all that, when you were in shed mode as a young drummer, who were the drummers you were shedding to? Who were your favorite players back then?
One of the earliest ones was Keith Moon. The Who. Keith Moon, Carmine Appice. Well, Buddy Rich, I would just listen to, just from hearing from other drummers. Well, you got to check out Buddy Rich and stuff. So I bought a couple records. Billy Cobham.
Oh,
I was listening to stuff like, bought some of his records. But yeah, Keith Moon was a big one.
wow.
I mean, the first time I ever saw footage of them playing and the way he played, I just thought was amazing. Just, you know, how physical he was. And I thought he was very original too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Extremely original drummer. Yeah.
With Cobham, what was it? What period was that? Mahavishnu or later? Or
it was a solo record I bought of his. I can't even, no, I wasn't, I wish I knew the title. Do you know any of the titles of the solo record?
Tons of them. Spectrum is probably my favorite.
I think it might be that.
And then there's Crosswinds and Morning and
I think Spectrum is it. Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe the time you were doing it was probably Spectrum, but Bill was actually my guest twice with Dom and I co-interviewed. Crazy, but
right.
And then and so you were sorry about that. You were checking out all of those guys and playing along at home and stuff like that.
Yeah. Boston bands like Boston, Bachman Turner Overdrive, which is a very popular Canadian band, April Wine, stuff like that, Canadian hero bands. And then one day, my brother brought home a lot of records that he played, and I was just like, who's that? One was also Led Zeppelin. He brought home that. Doobie Brothers was another big one. I loved the drumming in that. Captain and Me was one of my favorite records.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then one day he brought home something I was just like, whoa, Rush, Fly By Night. And so then I kind of went from Keith Moon being the major influence to Neil Peart.
Wow. And
that took me, through Click right up to the early 90s.
Now, when you played, got into Neil, was that when Fly By Night was a new record? Because that was like 75.
Yep. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was. And then it was my brother's, right? So that got me interested. And then the first one I purchased from them, and I'll never forget, it was dark in my living room. I had headphones on, 2112, and the intro started. And it was just, you know, you go to a whole new world listening to that, just the lyrics and just the way Neil played and just everything was amazing.
Yeah. You know, one thing I noticed, your playing is so clean and wonderful to listen to. It's just so clean and precise in a good way. So, you know, and you know, you're welcome, and totally true statement. And if you read interviews with Neil, and even I've talked to him about it, he loved Keith Moon. It was his first favorite drummer. And then he realized he wanted to be more organized than that, basically, to simplify what he said. Because Keith was so bombastic. Did you sort of change, like when you got into Neil, did you get into more of being like, oh wait, I want to be more compositional or something like that? Or?
Not even that, because that didn't really, well, for me, it was the way the clean playing developed. Of course, I always wanted to be a clean, precise drummer, but you know, I don't know if you ever experienced that, but I'm sure a lot of drummers did. There would be, you know, we were playing 6 nights a week. I mean, 52 weeks a year. You couldn't fill the clubs back then. And there was lots of nights you'd come off between sets and somebody in the band said, you know, that was too slow, that song. Oh, that song was too fast. I'm like, okay. So finally, I just said, I'm playing to a click. Right? So I started playing to a click back in the early 80s, live.
And could only you hear the click?
Yes, only me.
Ah.
And that was, I'd never done that before, especially live. And the first time I did it, the very first fill I did, I had to turn it off, right? I mean, like most drummers, we speed up in the fills, in the early stages anyway. So that was really the beginning. And I just I got so used to it that, you know, a lot of drummers say they get intimidated by it, but I tell my students, I just think of it as a guy on stage or a girl playing. I listen to cowbell.
Yeah.
Playing a cowbell in perfect time, and I'm playing to that.
Right.
and I'm so used to it now. I actually kind of prefer it in a lot of cases.
Is that why your band was called Click?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. They were well known and established before I joined them.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, when you did that, did the people you were playing with, like sometimes, especially now you're still not at the highest pro level. Sometimes other musicians, when the drummer does that, it feels strange to the other players. Like they don't want to relinquish the control to the drummer, and they also don't like the drummer not changing tempo. Did you experience that?
Actually, no. In this band, everyone welcomed it,
Oh.
and it's funny. I get a lot of different opinions, from people that say we'll never play with the click ever. But in the last 30 years, I think I've played to a click with every band. Like, for example, Annihilator, which they're very well known for being very tight and precise. And that's a lot to do with Jeff, the main guy.
Uh-huh.
And I went from being very tight to another level when I joined Annihilator. Uh-huh. And just regarding the click, they never played live to a click, and they experienced up and down every night, depending how many thousands of people are in the crowd. When the adrenaline's running, you just naturally play quicker. I introduced that to that band, and Jeff just loved it. They play to a click now with every drummer since I left. Mm-hmm. And it just keeps everything very consistent night to night, whether the band is feeling down or overexcited, right? Yeah. It keeps things in check. And when you listen back to recordings, it's always very consistent. And how the band, you decide on a tempo that everyone thinks, yeah, that's perfect the way this song should be. Yeah. 3 beats faster than the record or something. And then I got even into, we program some clicks depending on the band, where like Destruction now, they recorded in the early 80s to no click, and they purposely did different tempos, and I program it now. I program like the verse to be, sometimes 10 beats slower than the chorus, for example.
Wow.
But anyway, and then another side effect, the reason I like playing to a click is it frees me up to have way more fun on stage. I'm not concentrating on thinking about the tempo all the time. I know it's there. Like I said, it's like another instrument on stage. Mm-hmm. And I'm just playing to that, looking up, having fun, knowing I'm playing perfectly in time. That's great.
It's funny because even though all the things that you mentioned are in the metal world, everything that you just said, I play a lot in the Broadway world. It's the exact same logic. It's like, somebody's tired that night. Well, no, guess what? It was the same tempo. It's the same every night. And in those bands now, I'm assuming everyone has a choice of how much click they want in their mix, like click and drums, not just hearing.
Actually, the band, I don't know if anybody heard the click in the band. I'm not usually the only one.
Oh, okay.
And because most of the others aren't on in-ears. Like Destruction, they're old school. They will never play with in-ears. Annihilator didn't either. Wasp, no. Click, no, we didn't either. So it was always just me.
Like in all of these interviews I've done with some great drummers, like nowadays it's like it's not even a negotiable thing. Like if you're coming up as a player now, you have to be able to do it. All the work you do, it's there,
Well, see, another thing, I'm telling my students, because a lot of them are like, I don't like, and I'm like, listen, if you want to be a freelance drummer or professional drummer these days, you have to play to a click. Not only is there a lot of tracks coming from computers, for example, or machines, there's video screens now. It's all in time. Mm-hmm. And you're the guy you can't drop a beat. You can't drop a beat. You have to be, stuff happens. Technical things break down and, can't help that. But when that click starts, you have to be, and I try to instill that in my students. It's like, you just force yourself to do it. Yeah. Because it'll be the difference between getting the gig or not.
Right.
In some cases.
Totally. I just had a related thought and I lost it. But yeah, everything you do, it has to be, it's present in every style, and it's present, and I don't know. Do you think that playing, like, do you recommend your students play along with the click by itself and play along with songs, or?
Yeah, both, definitely. Yeah. And I also get a lot of them saying, well, my band refuses. And I said, well, try and convince them, at least just in rehearsals, just get used to it. And then live, if you want to freestyle it, go ahead. But especially I tell them, if you're going to play with different bands, there will be auditions where it's like, hey, can you play to a click? I'll give you a great example. I played in a band called, solo artist Bif Naked in Canada. She's done quite well. Actually, that's my one and only platinum record I ever had. Yeah, it's called Ibificus, right?
You can see it back
anyway.
Hang on, let me make you big so we can see it.
Oh, so that one's gold. It's gold, but it went platinum since, and I just haven't bothered to get one of those. But I got to look into that because it would be kind of cool. But anyway, when we were writing the songs, she got signed to Sony, right? And the manager came into rehearsal one day, and his name was Glenn Rosenstein, and Grammy Award-winning producer. And the manager comes in, he goes, manager's going to be here next week, and one important thing, he points at me, he goes, he wants to know if you can play to a click, right? He hadn't even heard me play nothing. He just wanted to know if the drummer can play to a click. And by then I was so used to it, I just was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. I've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that, like, back then, if you couldn't play to a click, a professional would replace you,
Right. Well, sorry to interrupt. He said, he was honest with him. He said, here's a list of guys I had from Vancouver. He said, if you couldn't do that, I had backups. Because, think about it. Sony Records is paying him a ton of money. We were in the Armory Studios in Vancouver, which is not cheap. And, time is money. Mime is money, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't cut it, you're out.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, and tell me if you agree with this, like, nowadays, you can play and not have good time and be kind of snapped to the grid. But at some point, you're going to get out of the studio and you're going to have to play the music. And everyone's going to know at that point if your playing is locked or not locked. So I think, you don't want to use that as a crutch. You want to be able to do it.
Yeah. Just if I could add to something to that. I've been playing so long with it, I can't help but think, I just get used to it and it gets ingrained in my head, playing steady. And it happened recently at a Destruction show. I don't know, a stick fell on a button on my mixer and the click was gone, right? So I played and I immediately went into more concentration mode and I got off stage and I was waiting for any comments from the guys like, hey, that was faster, that was slower. Nothing. And I just went, you guys notice anything different tonight? And they're like, no. I went, oh, cool, great. And they said, why? And I said, I lost the click of the third song in. They're like, oh, no, man, it was great. It was cool. Everything was great. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Your time is obviously so good at this point and your body's locked in. So that's great. All right. So we have so much, we're not going to get to everything I want to ask. So tell me a little bit about, let's go here now. Tell me a little bit about how your setup is so cool with the way you play the hat on both sides. Like at some point you got into developing both sides. How did that happen?
Right. Well, it started, I can tell you exactly when. I think I was 14. I was in the drum shop in Edmonton on White Ave. And the legend himself, Carmine Appice, was doing a clinic. And my first record I had, Tim Beck, Bogert, and Appice. And then he joined Rod Stewart. So I was also a big Appice fan.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I heard the word ambidextrous. And he was saying, you try to, be more ambidextrous with your playing. And then he explained, he's like, try to get as good with your left hand as your right if you're right-handed, and the opposite if you're left-handed.
Right.
So that stuck in me. And I think he even mentioned too, rudiments are good for that. And I was already into them. So practicing rudiments. So then playing 6 nights a week with this cover band Click, at one point, the songs didn't change that much. We'd learned the odd new one and stuff. So I knew them all and I wanted more of a challenge. And I said, well, I'm going to start leading with my left hand way more. So I first added the second hi-hat. And I would start with, one of our simpler songs, and I would just do a bar or two leading with the left, and it felt strange, obviously. So I stopped, go back. And over 10 years, you know, just like more and more and more. And by the end, I was doing some Rush songs, you know, leading with the left. And just because I had that opportunity every night to practice it, right? And a lot of times I could practice during the day in these cabarets. And then also it was around the time David Lee Roth had started his solo project. And Greg Bissonette in one of the videos had 2 hi-hats. Right. And that also inspired me. I think that's around the time I actually threw it in. And then I actually, there was one day we were playing in Vancouver at the local club, and we're playing, and we actually covered a David Lee Roth song called Shy Boy.
Nice, yeah.
And in between songs, I hear this voice from behind me. Yeah, man, kick ass. Cool. I turn around, and literally like this far away from me is Greg Bissonette sitting there with a beer behind my riser on stage.
Did you send me a picture of him playing with you guys?
Yeah, he was playing my kit, actually. We got him up because they were recording, and we played a week long in the club. He got up and played with us. I think he played some Zeppelin too. Yeah, I sent you a picture. You got it?
Yeah, as you're saying this.
Yeah, okay.
Try to find it.
It's called Greg Biz Playing My Kit.
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, and then later we were chatting in the dressing room, right? And he said, yeah, cool idea with the hi-hats. And I said, well, you know, you did that in that video. I said, that was inspirational for me to do it. And he's like, what? No. And I had to remind him, right? But anyway, so yeah, Greg's a great guy. He was, he came out and was just into the band, and there it is. Yeah. I had the chimes going on.
Oh, nice. And this was with the band Click, or?
Yeah. It's funny. I still have that drum stool in my practice room here. I just noticed.
Nice. And just to remind everybody who may not know, so Click was like top, like touring all across Canada, playing all across the country, like working every night and full time, like living, great gig.
Yeah. Well, basically, I can say it, and most people know. Like, we were one of, the top earning bands as well, and just very popular because I think we were so different in that way that we, like, cover bands were doing popular, like the top 40 stuff, you know, and we were doing some of that, but we were also, besides Rush, like, we used to do a full set of Rush or more, which was like 60 minutes every night, and we would also be doing Queen. We would be doing The Who, Led Zeppelin. Yeah, that's, you know which one I am?
Is that you on the left?
The far left with the cat, yeah.
Nice. I love it.
That was shortly after I joined. See, this was, this is 1984-ish or something, that picture, I think.
And then what happened here? Tell everybody what this one's all about. This is pretty interesting. Where is it? Here it is, right here. What's going on with this?
Okay, those in the know that know will know who that is on the far right, leaning against, it looks like a ladder or something. Well, that is none other than Terry Brown, the longtime producer of the early albums of Rush, all the way up to Signals, I think, right? Was his last record.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'll try and make a long story short. Click, when I joined in the early 80s, we were a cover band, but we were also an original band in the sense where we were writing songs. We would play the clubs at night, and then, like I said earlier, some of them were closed during the day, or at night we would go in the middle of the night and record our own originals. And so all through the years, we developed a catalog. Then we had a manager named Ross McKenzie, or the band that knew him lovingly referred to him as Lost My Car Keys. He somehow got our music to Terry Brown, and he just flipped out, loved the stuff. And I will skip a lot of the things. We ended up being in his house in Toronto when we played there, so all the platinum records, the gold records. Then he flew out to Vancouver when we actually decided on 11 songs to record for our first CD, right? And unfortunately, it came down to decisions were made in the band where 2 deals that we had worked up, or our manager had worked up, that were turned down. And the last one, you remember Relativity Records?
Yes, of course. Wasn't Satriani on that label for a while?
Satriani was on there, maybe Vi, but it was kind of a progressive label.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Wendy's, I'll never forget. And our manager was like, yeah, it was back when they were offering good money. And so one guy didn't want to do it from the band. And so I think I said or something, I don't know. It's a majority because the 3 of us want to do it. And he just was like, then do it without my part of the songwriting. And so that put the kibosh on everything. I remember going, okay, it's kind of weird. I don't want to make this sound too, I just didn't want to be in a bar band for the rest of my career. Mm-hmm. We had an opportunity that most bands died for. Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine you're a Canadian band growing up, Rush is your hero, we're a Rush cover band. Terry Brown himself is going to produce the record, loves the songs. And it didn't happen. So just in my mind, I really quickly just said, okay, I'm out. Mm-hmm. And we had a meeting and I said, sorry guys, I want to develop something different. I want to develop my own voice as a drummer. And I think similar to you, we talked, if you don't mind me saying, I went through a period too with, it wasn't like I didn't want to play Rush ever again or didn't like Rush's music or Neil's playing, but I was compared to Neil Peart mostly for 10 years, right? Which is great. It's an honor for sure. It's like, hey man, you do Neil and you guys do Rush so great. But back in my mind, I always said, yeah, but I want to have my own voice. I want to develop something different. Mm-hmm. And we had the chance. We wrote over 30 songs, the band clicked. So anyway, long story short, I quit. And literally the day after our band played our last gig at the Beverly Crest in Edmonton, we drove in a yellow school bus, me and a couple of the other members and the sound man, to Vancouver. 6 months later, I was in Annihilator touring the world. 6 months later.
So you, when that happened and you realized that your goals were different than the other guys, like you walked away from.
Okay, just not all the other guys. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because you can't really, if somebody doesn't want to go into a situation like that, there's no forcing them to go. I mean,
right, of course not. Right.
But what I was getting to is ultimately you moved, you walked away from, you decided to leave something that was safe. It was like you could just kept going and making a living, and so you obviously don't regret that decision.
No. I mean, it's funny because recently I met with 2 of the other guys in Vancouver when I was back there doing some clinics in March before this all blew up. We all met and had dinner. And yeah, of course, when we talk about details and stuff from the opportunity, there is some bitterness, but I wouldn't change it for the world now. I mean, everything that's happened ever since has been a blessing, and it's gone down a path that I could never have imagined. But and I kind of related to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, finish that thought, and then I'll add.
Yeah, just that. It's another thing I kind of tell my students, and one thing I got some advice from a person a long time ago. It wasn't then, but it was another decision I was thinking about. And the guy says, "Hey, Randy, great things come when you step out of your comfort zone." This was definitely one of those things that I can relate to. There was other stuff too, but yeah. And every time I've done that, great things have happened. So it's like, I'm going to try something completely different now.
Right.
Annihilator, for example, was completely different than anything I'd ever done.
So that's what I'm going to get to. So you left after you stopped doing Click and you went back to Vancouver. Like, that was heavier music. It was like a different. I mean, I guess you were into heavier music, even though you.
No. Oh, no, that's the thing. No, if you call, back then, there was bands starting out. There was Slayer, there was Judas Priest, Megadeth. I was never really into those bands.
like Judas Priest and Megadeth isn't really like heavy by today's standards.
Well,
That's really right.
okay, well, it's heavier than Rush.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
no doubt, no doubt.
And Metallica was, on the rise and stuff.
Yeah.
And no, and when I left Click, I went out to Vancouver and I joined a more commercial, like I've joined a cover band where we played literally what was on the radio. And it was still fun, but it was nothing like Click was. Like Click was, a band that I thought, it's kind of like the Beatles when they said, yeah, we're going to make it. It's like the four of us. We were no member changes for 10 years. Right. It was like, we're going to make it. And I honestly never really had that sense because I've just been jumping into bands, which has been great. But other than Dusk Machine, which is a band I have currently now, we've done 2 CDs, but it's more of a project. Mm-hmm. But stepping out of the comfort zone is always a great place to grow.
So fast forward us, and then at some point you moved to Germany, and that's where you are. That's where you've made your base now for 20 plus years, right? Right.
Next month is 22.
Wow, that's great.
22 years.
So you told me yesterday, if you don't mind me mentioning, that you didn't actually do it for a job.
No. Okay, should I try and make a long story short?
Yeah, well, I want to get to your setup, and I want to get to your teaching stuff too. So,
okay, yeah. So how I ended up in Germany? Okay, so while I was playing in Vancouver, I got a call from Annihilator's manager, and he said, "Hey, the guys in Annihilator, I've seen you play in your Rush cover band, Click, and they think you'd be great for the band." And I went, "Annihilator who?" I didn't know who Annihilator was, honestly. He goes, "Annihilator, Alice in Hell." And I was like, "Alice in where?" And he said, he sent me a cassette tape, right? There was no CDs and stuff, or was there? Okay, anyway, he sent me a rehearsal cassette of the band rehearsing, and it was Mike Mangini playing drums. And the music was so different and heavy and cool, the riffs and the double bass going with the guitar. I thought, hey, man, I got to try this. And so I did the audition, and Jeff was very honest because I hadn't played double bass the way metal's played. He said, "Your hands are great, but you got the gig, but we got to work on your double bass." And me and him worked together, just me and him, 2 weeks alone every day, working on parts before the band came in. And that I went from playing double bass like as a hobby, kind of some fills, blah 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 da 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 da, to playing serious double bass. So anyway, on my first tour with them, we were in Berlin playing at the Marquee. I got off stage and I saw this beautiful blood. I get choked up every time I talk about it. It's strange. Anyway, so I said, "If she's still here," I was shy, right? I'm saying, it's not going to have anything to do with me, some metal drummer. I went and had a shower, and I said, "If she's still here, when I get upstairs, I'm going straight over to her." So I did. And we just hit it off. And to make the long story short, we ended up doing a long distance relationship from Berlin to Vancouver for almost 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then she was studying. She's an archaeologist, right? Oh, wow. And so it made more sense for me to drop everything and move to Germany. So I quit the band I was in then was Bif Naked, quit everything, sold everything I owned except my kit, my custom Canwood kit, and flew it all to Germany. And I arrived here in November of '98. Mm-hmm. That's how I got here. So. That's
so great. But you, to be clear, you didn't intend, when you knew you wanted to be together, and you guys are still together, which is super awesome. But it wasn't like you were planning on giving up your career. Like you're just like, I'm gonna go and change, and I'm gonna be based here, and I'm gonna get back into it. So now you're in Germany, and then you got right back into it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was never on my radar, like Germany's the place to go be a drummer, right? It was like, I'd been through some relationships. It was just, not to sound cheesy, but I knew this was the one. Okay. And I said, I'm going there. And I've always had the attitude where it's like sink or swim. And I know you're just going to swim. You have to. And I was going to make it work. I mean, I didn't go there with nothing. One time I was visiting her there, I met a guy, Andreas Schumacher, Andy, who I still know to this day. And I walked into a store and, he knew of Annihilator and he knew of Bif Naked, who I was playing with at the time. I'm looking for a CD. So I went back the next day with the CD and a resume. And 3 weeks later, my girlfriend called and said, hey, he wants to hire you. So I went and applied for my visa, sold everything, and I was over 3 months later.
Wow.
So I just came to teach, had no band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
Then,
it's funny you had mentioned just to keep our books in balance. Like I never thought of Germany as the place to, but now that you're there, we all know that there's drummers from Klaus Hessler and Marco Miniman and Benny Greb and like some of the greatest in the world are there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thomas Lang, I mean, he's not officially from Germany, but just across the border.
Yeah.
I mean, it just turned out to be great to be here, especially, metal's very big in Germany.
Right.
It is just, there's festivals all over the place. And so I just eventually got into some bands. It was funny, I got into my first funk band ever with a 3-piece horn section.
Mm-hmm.
Gum Jabbar, they were called then.
Yeah.
And just started playing around. And then I got the call from Annihilator. They were on tour in Europe. And Ray, the original drummer, and he returned after I left, he got on the phone with Jeff and just, yeah, I've had enough. I just don't want to, blah, blah, blah. And do you want the gig? And I rejoined in 2001 and did 2 more CDs.
Right.
1 studio CD and a live CD. And then that was my second stint in Annihilator.
Right. I for those who don't know, I mean, the funk thing I would love to hear, because now having seen you play some different styles and watching some of the Rock Meets Classic stuff, you sound so great in all these different styles. You're such a pro. Anyone who knows you for your metal career, it's like, I just find that so cool, man. That's all.
Well, yeah, it was by the story. It was by accident. I didn't know, and I just thought it was so challenging to play that stuff. And it was a long-running joke. The first tour we did across Canada in a van with Annihilator, they were bringing up all these names of drummers that I'm like, I didn't know who Dave Lombardo was. Jeff played Rain and Blood constantly the whole tour. He was just trying to get that thrash metal ingrained into my head, which eventually it did. Yeah. And it was tough to play and get that gig down. Anyway,
well, just from a technical standpoint, like I was going to say, back then Slayer was kind of the most extreme band you had, but that was pre. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a metal expert and I'm not. But to me, that was pre the broken double bass stuff, which you're great at now, right?
Well, that was Annihilator was more broken up double bass stuff. I know what you mean now. Yeah.
But you like. That's what you were learning on the fly, like in the band, like you're learning how to do it. That's crazy.
That was really, really tough. I'll never forget, man. In fact, I was walking across my kitchen after a couple of weeks with Jeff, and I went to cut a cantaloupe, and my hand froze around the cantaloupe. I was just so overworked because I wasn't used to playing that stuff, and my feet. It was just. The first gig too, I'll never forget, because I played hockey all my life, and I'll never forget the first day at training camp. Everyone's throwing up over the boards, and just because you're out of shape. And after the first gig, I crawled to the backstage, the first Annihilator gig, and it was like first day at hockey camp. But eventually, you learn to develop techniques that make the gig easier, and that's what's happened in the last 25 years of playing that stuff.
That's amazing. Well, your technique looks wonderful on everything I've seen you play. Do you let's see. I want you to walk through a little bit of your Sabian setup, because you have a really cool looking, interesting. So let me see. I have to get that picture back. I like that one that we had because it showed your setup.
I have to say it's changed over the years, obviously, but now the one, I think the pictures you have, it's pretty much the basic setup I have now.
Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can share one, and you could just give me a basic overview of like what models you like and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe this picture.
Okay, great. So that one, so for years, even before I had an endorsement, I was looking for my setup and sounds that I thought were great. And there's, if I have to fly and I'm very limited to what I can take, for me, the music I play now with Destruction in thrash metal, I have to take the HH power bell rides. Which you see there, they're more on the lower section there, right and left. And those are 20s, I think. And now they've been nice enough to custom shop me a couple of 19s.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, they still sound great, but, you know, every ounce when you're flying counts.
Oh, wow. That's
right.
True. Yeah. Like the 19, like the whole symbol's a bell. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. But almost. But that's the thing. It's an 8-inch bell, right? So it's not only can you be, you know, in the dark and you can nail that bell, no problem, right? You just reach out your arm, it's there. But it just sounds so, it's just like, here comes a train down the track, get out of the way. And it just cuts. No matter if you're playing a small club, obviously, or the biggest festival, it just cuts.
Right. And people can see in your setup, you have like, you know, one on each side down there. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much mirrored.
Yeah,
that comes from, you know, the right-left thing. And it's still, now I'm, because of the limitations flying and stuff, I don't use those. They're not, are they called ozones, right? It's the APX, right and left, 16 and an 18, I think. And so those I still have, but they're not part of the metal setup.
And then what about your two hats?
Two hats, I always, for years I used the vaults, but now that they introduced the HH explosions, I got my hands on a couple set of those, 2 pairs of those, and those are my mainstay now. I just love the way they sound because I thought, because I'm using the HH explosions, HHX, HHX, explosion crashes. So I thought the hi-hat's got to be great. So I asked Frank at Pearl Drums Europe, there's a distributor over here, to send me some, and I just love them. So those are they're 14s right and left.
So what 14s. Oh.
Yeah, 14s.
Wow. You haven't done the big hats thing like everybody
else.
Well,
you know what? I like the way they sound and stuff. And the Legacies, I think. I heard a set of those in 15s and I thought, ooh, wow. But for the music I play, I just like bright, cutting, brilliant cymbals. I just love it. And I love the brilliant finish. I love bling. And it's just, I love it.
And cool though. It's like design, you know, thought went into that design, which I think is awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And in the picture I was using Paragons and Neil Peart. I just love them because for years, and Neil himself played the Wuhans, right? Those really trashy. And then he developed that, which is similar. So I still have those in my setup, but being a Sabian artist, you know, they send me samples and stuff. Actually, I'll remember, I was at the Frankfurt Music Messe and I was with Christian Koch, you know him, right?
Yeah.
And we were watching Ray Luzier play his clinic, and he had that 21 Holy China.
Yeah.
And it was new. And me and him were just, I turned to him, I went, what is that? And he goes, yeah, that's the new Holy China. I'm like, so I got on the phone and it's like, hey, you got to send me those. So those are now my new favorites. They're not in that picture. But left, I normally play a left 19 on the left and a 21 on the right. So those are in my setup now. They're just great. I mean, they just cut and really trashy, and they don't decay that long, which I like.
Right.
And what else is in there? Flashes, I'm using the Evolutions.
Oh, really? That's pretty thin.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a lot of people say, hey, man, you're a hard hitter, thrash guy. But actually, I had that conversation with Christoph Schneider from Rammstein. He was like, they're too thin for me. And I was like, nah, I just love them. They get warped sometimes, but they still sound great. And I don't break that many of them, but I just love the sound. They just so cutting. And
do you travel with your cymbals all the time?
If I can, yeah. I travel with the bag, the Sabian bag, because my setup in there is exactly 23 kilos. Really, it's within ounces, and that I can travel with. And I travel with a separate rack as well, with some specials.
And what about pedals? Are you fussy with pedals?
Not really. That's the great thing about, I'm a Pearl endorser, so shameless plug there. But I can play any of the Pearl. I've played the the Demon Drive, but in chain version. I tried I don't like the direct drives, although they're amazing for certain playing and stuff.
Right.
I'm an old school. I play full leg, double bass. So I like the Eliminators. And now I'm just playing. I just got a set of Eliminator red lines, which I can use too. They're great. So I fly with the chain drive Demons because 4 screws and I can lay them flat. And they're the lightest pedal. I've weighed them. They're the lightest pedal Pearl offers. So I can lay them flat and travel with those.
Right.
And the cool thing about Eliminators is worldwide, any festival, they're provided. I mean, they're on the backline list. They provide a few different brands, right? Gamma, whatever, DW, but there's always Pearl. So I can always fly without my pedals too. If they have Eliminators, I'm good.
Right. Well,
so I'm kind of picky. Not really though.
That's cool. Well, you're so pro that I'm sure it seems crazy to me that you play one of your gigs with someone else's pedals, but you do, and hopefully we'll all be flying someday again soon.
Oh man, yeah.
Let's there's a little time left, so you're doing quite a bit, Randy. Teaching at BIM. Are you teaching a course you've and also a drum trainer Berlin? Are you teaching courses you've designed? What's the subject matter, and who are your students?
Okay, let's start with BIM, British Irish Modern Music Institute, based in UK. First location is Berlin, Germany. So what I'm teaching there, they offer a bachelor degree, three-year course. I'm teaching what's called pre-production. And the drummers, they have drummers, all instruments, and at the end, or one time in the week, they all get together with the other instruments and perform a song. So there I prepare the drummers for that particular song in the week, so they can go perform with the rest of the students. And their job then is to go on stage and perform it, not practice it. They got to be ready. So I have to give them the tools to be prepared to step on stage and play with the other instruments. Mm-hmm. And with drum trainer, they teach only drums. And what's cool about that school is they're teaching basics of various styles, which personally I try to teach to my students, just to learn the basics of as many different styles as you can, just to put that in your toolbox. And you'll never know where you can take some of those styles. And also with drum trainer, I'm currently, tomorrow actually, I'm doing some tutorials for their online platform. So you can go online and find some great stuff. They've got a lot of great drummers on there. So I'm very happy to be finally contributing there. So those are the two places. And I teach privately, but not a lot because I'm not advertising. It's just kind of word of mouth.
Uh-huh. And for private lessons, do you do online lessons?
I started that out of force when all this COVID thing happened with BIM and drum trainer, where it's like, do you have Zoom? What's Zoom? So I set it all up, and it was actually kind of painless, really. So I can do that actually from home because I have a kit here with mesh heads, got aquarium mesh heads on there and the Sabian quiet tones, and I can do it in there. It's not the same, of course, as you know, but I can teach privately there too, and they can get a hold of me through my website. It's just info@randyblack.de.
Oh yeah.
If anyone's interested.
I'll put your site up there. What I mean, now with this whole COVID thing, my son's actually in college for music. He wants to be a drummer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, have you gotten your brain around or changed or given any different advice to people or students now because of this?
Because of COVID?
Yeah. What's your advice to the young guys and girls who want to do what we do now?
Oh, well, okay, good. There's a few. The thing that's always worked for me, because as you know, in this business, it's a roller coaster, especially financially. Like David Lee Roth famously once said, "Here today, gone later today." I'll never forget that line. And, what I tell them is, what's worked for me is don't live beyond your means. And what I mean by that is, for example, I've never said, I got to have a house, invested in a house, or I don't even own my own car. I've lived my life so that, in times like COVID, it's like when it hit, it's like, yeah, I've been through this before. I was without a band when I quit Primal Fear. I was in there for 11 years, and then suddenly I was bandless. But basically, it's like, prepare for those moments, because it's so up and down. So keep your costs of living low so that you can keep doing what you love, is basically one of the things I say. Another is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, have a few things on the go. Like for me, that's teaching. I do teaching on the side so I can keep touring. What else? Of course, learning to play to a click.
Yeah.
It's paramount. You got to learn to play to a click and get used to it. Make sure that it's like you're not intimidated. And learning basics to different styles, just challenging yourself, stepping out of the comfort zone.
That's
Definitely big one.
Good practical advice. Are you, are you the kind of guy, some of my pro drum friends are very passionate about practicing. Others are maybe not as much, since there are other things in life that they're doing. Are you currently doing a lot of practicing? And if so, what inspires you these days to practice?
Yep. Good question. It has gone up and down, right? There has been times, back in the day in that click band, sometimes we take a whole month off at Christmas to go home, and I didn't touch a drumstick for a month. And at first that terrified me, but I went back and it was heaven. It was like so cool. It was great. It felt good to play. So I told my students, don't be worried about taking a break once in a while. It's not the end of the world. You're going to get back into it. But now, since I've been to Germany, actually, in the beginning, it's because I didn't know anybody. So I had a lot of time to practice, and I wanted to learn new things. So at the moment, I'm in there at least 3 times a week. Part of that is to maintain the levels I need double bass wise for destruction.
Right.
So, which are like between 160 and 215, 220 dB with 16ths. So I got to maintain to keep that. The cool thing I'm learning now, as I said earlier, I'm full leg double bass guy, which takes a lot of energy, and there's limits, physical limits. So I'm learning swivel technique now in the double bass, which is like, outside is 1, 2, like 1 E and 2 E, and then the left the same. So I'm working on that in the hopes to make my job in destruction easier playing those tempos, and it's going good. It's like, I don't know if it's like you start something new at first, it's, man, I'm not getting this, and then one day the switch goes and it's like, yeah. Well, I'm at that point now.
That's amazing. When you're working on the swivel technique, are you like, is it the kind of thing where you do a little bit each? Like, I sometimes feel like a short sessions, like do it and walk away, do it and walk away. Are you doing it like that, or how?
No, you know what I did? I said, okay. A lot of times too, I refer to my clock in my drum rooms. Like drummers ask, how do you get so fast double bass? I just say, listen, when I practice double bass, it's 90 minutes before I'm done and I'm drenched. But no, with this swivel technique, what I did is like, okay, I'm going to dedicate an hour a day to this, just because I know it just takes pounding it in. I'm not one of those guys that gets it overnight. And I picked a record to practice to, and it's Aerosmith Rocks. And I put that on because it has all different tempos, right? And I started just very slow. And now I'm very happy to say there's songs that I started with just quarter notes, and now I'm doing 16ths through the songs, right? Back in the saddle again and stuff like that. And it's great. So when I know when the album's done, then I go on to something else.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, thing I've done the last couple of interviews that I enjoy doing, just a rapid fire question thing. And if I mention someone who's not someone who is a big artist you listen to, just say next.
Okay.
So, tell me, 2 or 3 of your professional drumming peers that inspire you now with their playing.
Now.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good question. Whew. You know what? I have to go back some years because it's been a while. Like particular guys. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. Just give me quick two or 3 of your most inspirational drummers.
Akira Jimbo was one. I started getting into some left foot clave stuff like this. Man, oh man.
Well, that's cool. We can. I got more.
Okay, Gary Chafee, linear drumming.
Oh wow. Okay. One of the most important teachers to come along ever.
Absolutely.
Okay. So favorite. Just hit me with most. It doesn't have to be the best of all time, but first song that comes to mind of your favorite track, The Who.
Bob O'Reilly.
Cool. Carmine Appice drum track.
Black Cat Moan.
Ooh, good one. Good one. Neil Peart.
Camera Eye.
Oh,
the Camera Eye.
Deep cut. Transcribed that one in my book, so that's a good.
Did you?
Yeah, it's in Classic Tracks. Yeah.
Oh, awesome! I got to get that.
Do you have a Billy Cobham favorite song?
It would have to be. Wasn't that the title? One of the songs? No, Stratus.
Stratus, yeah, well, classic, yeah, right? Of course.
Yeah, I have that one on the Jam It too. Anyway.
Oh, really? No, nobody can play those singles as fast as him, though.
Right.
No. You have a favorite Slayer song?
Okay, I have to go with the typical one. Rain and Blood. No, hold on. Angel of Death.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Now you mentioned Thomas. Do you have a Meshuggah track that inspires you?
You know what? Yes, and I have to admit, and it's obvious. The title track to the Destruction album I told you about, the song that the rhythm is inspired from Bleed.
Oh, okay.
Bleed. It's very similar. And then I play something very similar like that on the kicks. So some people say, yeah, very Meshuggah-ish in a thrash metal way. So
right. Man, that figure with the feet it's the modern day. I've been shedding it. My version's not ready for public consumption quite yet. It's getting cool. But like it almost feels like that's like a talisman or a rite of passage now for I think like metal drummers, right? Like, I mean, it was like
that's difficult.
It was like Hot for Teacher was like, when it first happened, no one could do it. Actually, Hot for Teacher, like people were like, where I lived, people were like, that's double bass, and then all of us in the know were like, nah, you can't even do that with your feet. It's impossible. But now everyone.
Yeah, man. It's the way how far it's come is insane. Like when I started imagine to play songs like Annihilator or double bass at 180, let alone 200, forget it. I started double bass late, but anyway, now they're doing 280, 300 BPM.
Yeah,
it's like I'm old school now.
Well, you're definitely old school to me, man. Well, Randy, it's been great. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time today.
Hey, it was my honor, man. Thank you, really.
I just want to put this up here from Kevin Lehman, our great friend of SEN, who was also interviewed by Dom.
Yeah.
And Randy's portion of the Hudson Music Independence and Polyrhythms DVD is great. He enjoyed working on it. So we excerpted some of that from Randy's Black Book DVD to go on the Hudson compilation. So
thank you very much.
I would recommend all you guys to check out Randy's work with all of his bands and his teachings with the online drum trainer Berlin, and hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up again. Both
I hope so, man.
Within the Education Network and out there on the road when we all get back to doing what we love to do when we get to the other side of this crazy time.
Keep wearing the mask.
We will. Randy, thanks so much, man. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll be back next week. So those of you in the know with the Sabian Education Network, we're starting some classes that you will only be informed about if you're a member. You'll find out through the newsletter. We have our first one next week with Dan Schinder from Drum Talk TV about social marketing to maybe increase your teaching practice. But of course, Don will be back on Thursday. I'll be back right here next Friday with more great Sabian interviews. Again, everybody have a great weekend. Mr. Randy Black, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thanks for being a friend of Sabian and the network. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
All right. My pleasure.